What's up, guys? Coach Matt here, Lions Den Elite Training in Colmar, PA, and this week we're talking all about strongman, how we can work it into our strength-based or powerlifting routines, and how we can kind of do so without worrying about overtraining, feeling overly fatigued day to day, and still maintaining progress in all of our barbell movements. So I'm going to give you 3 methods today on how to work strongman into your current strength training program. We'll start off with the easiest way and then work our way up into the more, I'll call it, intense way to kind of work strongman into your program. All right, so the first method I can recommend you, which is probably going to be the easiest, would just be to substitute out any sort of accessory work your program may have with strongman movements. Now, not to bag on accessory movements, but generally the bulk of the more important stuff you're training is going to be in the strength components of your programming. So your programming probably has 1 or 2 big strength movements per day. That's where a lot of the thought processing has gone through in terms of sets, reps, percentages, or RPE. Accessory work for programs are usually written to be a bit more customizable. You'll sometimes actually see that they're optional in the program. So it's easy to work with throwing in a few strongman exercises with our accessory stuff where it might not be so important compared to messing with a main movement and turning that into a strongman movement. Big thing here is if you don't want your program to change too much, you're going to want to keep your strongman movements still in those rep ranges that were recommended for you for your accessory work. So you might not be able to work up to too high of an intensity, but it's going to keep your program mostly the same, where your strength movements are going to be the big base, and then you'll get to practice strongman with your accessory movements, maybe in a bit higher of a rep range and a bit lower of an intensity level, but it's not really going to change up your program all that much, making it the easiest way to work strongman. All right, so the next kind of level up from this, which I already kind of hinted at, would be switching one of your main movements with a strongman movement. Off the bat, I probably wouldn't recommend doing this too often. You're gonna wanna build your raw strength with the main movements. They are the main movements for a reason. Your squat, bench, deadlift are just gonna be the movements you can load the most amount of weight and make the most amount of strength progress on. So you do want those being the base of your training most of the time. But I'll give you an example. I've got a competition coming up about 8 weeks away, and one of the events is the axle clean and press. So instead of my regular strict shoulder press, I'm going to be doing an axle push press just to work on that skill, make sure I'm super comfortable with heavy weights being on my shoulders and super comfortable with the push-jerk technique in itself. So like I said, if you are going to mess with the main movements in your program, I'd suggest only doing that for a short time, kind of if you had a competition coming up and there's a very specific movement that you want to practice over that time, and then go back to doing your main movements overall. So the last way we can kind of add strongman into our programs, and this way is going to change your programming up a little bit, and you need to kind of work with this and see how your body responds to things, but that would be adding strongman days to your routine. So strongman days would be exactly what the name implies. It'd just be days dedicated to picking up a few movements. So say you wanted to work your log clean and press, circus dumbbell, tire, whatever it was that day, you just focus in on learning that skill for that day and not worrying about anything else. 2 ways I can kind of recommend adding strongman days into your program. One way would be making it a more conditioning day. So that would obviously be a bit higher volume, the intensity a bit lower, but you'd be getting a lot of reps in with the implements and just be getting a lot of skill adaptation with the implements. The other way would be doing a higher intensity day, but keeping the volume pretty low. And this will allow you to practice the implements at that higher intensity, because it does change up when the weights are heavier, but also not accrue too much volume to the point that you're really jeopardizing the rest of your training days. The thing is, adding these days in is going to be very specific to the individual, so I can't really tell you what's going to work and what's not going to work. I'll tell you what I'm currently doing. So I currently have a powerlifting routine, which is 4 days a week, and then I've added 2 strongman days on top of that. So the first strongman day is actually during one of my training days. I go right from training into it. It's actually a strongman class here at the den, and I'd consider that more conditioning for me. At that point, I'm just super tired and my body is kind of self-limiting the amount of weight I'm able to handle. So that's usually more of a conditioning day for me. The other day is at the end of the week, Saturday. I do the higher intensity that I was talking about, and by that I'm talking maybe 3 sets of 3, 5 sets of 3, 80 to 85%-ish, just so I can kind of taste heavier weights, but it's still not the super high intensity level, and I'm not accruing too much volume. I'm just getting really good reps in, at the heavier weights so I can get the difference between what it's like lifting lighter weights, what it's like using the implements with heavier weights. Another thing I'll say is the first week you kind of try this, adding on days to your routine, you're definitely going to feel sore, but it'll go away. Your body is rather good at adapting to the new kind of stimulus like this. So as long as you're not going too crazy in the gym, you might add 1 day the first week, do that for a few weeks, and then maybe try adding 2 Strongman days. Your body will adapt to it. It's going to feel sore at first, but you're not getting injured, you're not overtraining, your body's going to adapt to it, and you'll be good to go. So that's it, guys. That's a few ways you can add Strongman into your current strength training routine. Play around with it, do what feels good for you, experiment for a few weeks with one method, experiment for a few weeks with another method, and just see how your body's responding to it. Remember, our bodies are super great at responding to adaptations like this, just as long as we give them the time to adapt to them. So don't just try and dump everything on at once and expect your body to be fine with it. Take things slow, add one thing, then another thing, and you'll be good to go after that. Thanks for checking out this week's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.